Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker, host of the Love You Even More podcast. I'm an author, marriage and family therapist in training, performer, and 2-time Emmy Award winner. Each week, I bring on people from all walks of life to talk to them about their inspiring stories in the fields of self-development, relationships, business, and how you can love yourself even more. For more about me and the podcast, visit us at loveyouevenmore.com. Welcome, Patrick Calgary, to the Love You Even More podcast. Patrick is an accomplished, award-winning, unscripted television producer with over 20 years of experience in developing and delivering compelling content. Most recently, he served as co-executive producer for Fight to Survive on Roku and The Quest on Disney+. Throughout his career, Patrick has played a pivotal role in producing some of television's most successful unscripted series, including The Amazing Race, Big Brother, Naked and Afraid, and American Idol. In addition to his television work, Patrick is also an active content creator on social media under the handle @ProducerPatrick, where he shares behind-the-scenes insights and engages with his audience on the latest trends in unscripted content and storytelling. His work continues to shape the evolving landscape of unscripted television and inspire new approaches to media. Patrick, I've been stalking you on Instagram, and I probably found you on TikTok to begin with. But Patrick, you've been like this guiding light to what has happened to the entertainment industry for me and so many people. I've been watching your videos and just feeling so heard and so seen, despite that most people not in entertainment think we're fine. There's this like, oh, you had a strike and that was scary, but now everything's fine, right? And I see all these shows on TV, like it must be fine. And to the people who are working in people who are not working in California, in the entertainment industry, things are not fine, like not even close to fine. And you, I feel, are on the pulse of everything that's going on, including what's happening with like laws and Newsom and all the things. So I think for people listening who are like, I don't understand why I watch my favorite shows, they're not going to be there anymore. What's going on? Let's start from sort of the beginning of, and also caveat, I just want to say I love that you compared what's happening to entertainment, like film and TV, to what happened to the music industry like 20 plus years ago. And I really want to talk about that because I was in the music industry for like a very long time.
Oh, so you got the double whammy.
Oh, yeah. It's been real fun since I graduated. So let's start from sort of the beginning of how we are in this mess. Go.
Well, that's a very loaded question, but we'll dive into it. Really, a lot of people tell me in their feedback of watching my videos, they say, geez, thank you for putting it in perspective, because now I can send this video to my family in Iowa or wherever to finally explain to them what's going on, because it's kind of a perfect storm of just things that happen simultaneously between productions getting cheaper, between tech moving in and taking over our traditional media companies and studios, to streaming, which is now like basically made broadcast and cable irrelevant, and also an audience becoming completely saturated with content, and an audience actually leaving the traditional platforms of film and television for social media. So we have like these kind of multiple things happening at the same time. If you want to back it up to when it really kind of started, it really was when Netflix kind of came on the scene, and they started around 2008, but really around 2016 was when things kind of started getting cooking. And that's when they were just like, we are a streaming platform. Everything is streaming. And I remember I had a friend who was an executive at Netflix, and I think the first time I kind of wrapped my head around the whole everything is streaming was, I remember being an Academy member for the Emmys, the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and always getting DVDs around award season. You would get like, here's all your television shows.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting them from Netflix, and it was just like, stream it. And it was just like, it was a website to put in. And I said, well, what the hell is it? I want the DVDs, because then I can share it with my friends. And
which they don't want you to do, by the way. That's illegal, but we do it anyway. Sort of. Maybe we don't. Whatever. Go on.
So what happened was, the streaming model really started taking off, and a lot of people really preferred a la carte television. Instead of like, I have to wait till 8 o'clock right on the tick to watch my favorite program, I could watch it whenever I want, because up till then, I think, DVR was like starting to become very popular, right? So all of a sudden, this pandemic hits, and a lot of the companies that were trying to mimic Netflix's model all of a sudden got pushed into hyperdrive. It's like, oh my gosh, everybody is now sitting at home watching television. We have to basically accelerate it. And tech's motto, and I live in Silicon Valley now, so I hear this all the time, is go fast and break things. And unfortunately, they went fast and they broke things. They just didn't know what they were breaking until it was broken.
Right.
So you have all of a sudden this, like, a lot of investment from Wall Street, a lot of money is being poured into, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, and you have this almost what it seemed like a renaissance of television and film production. Just movies were being made left and right. Budgets didn't matter. It was all of a sudden, it was just like, wow, I've never been busier in 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. And 2022 came, and Netflix kind of realized they made a public release of actually, we're not making any money doing this. Our subscribership has plateaued. We blew up an entire advertising model, because until then everything was advertising based, but they're like, no, we're going to go on a subscription based system. And then that's when shit really kind of hit the fan. At the same time, they're trying to make productions cheaper now, because they can't afford to keep the production going like it's been going. Oh my gosh, we gotta do 8 episodes instead of 20 episodes, and they have a lot of reasoning for this, and they're listening to their algorithms, and the algorithms are now telling them to make the same stuff over and over again, because that's what the audience wants. And they're kind of diluting creativity, and it just became this problem that came to a head where the writers and the actors finally said, we've had enough, and we're striking. Mm-hmm. And the strike happened at the same time the studios are like, we're out of money. We need to refigure our we got to figure our shit out. So they just said, no more production. We're stopping. We are shutting down. And we're going to only make what we can consider true bets, or where we can like invest money. We can put all our eggs in one basket that we know is going to be a hit, which unfortunately, I think tech is starting to realize now that even with all their algorithms and data and, voodoo and magic, you still can't predict what an audience wants to see. And what we as creatives and creators and filmmakers know is storytelling rules in film and television. It's not about necessarily the content or the celebrity, or it's telling a good story. And so now we're at this point where there's a lot of production people, there's a lot of creatives that are all out of work because there is no work to be had. And in this effort for studios to, again, try to make their budgets work, they're now offshoring productions overseas. They're saying it's cheaper to make a movie in Eastern Europe than it is to make it in the United States, because we unfortunately just don't have the funds to make these movies anymore. And we want to make more production, but at the same time, we get more bang for a buck overseas. And so that's kind of a Cliff Notes version of how we got to where we are today.
The end. Thanks for coming on. Now everyone gets it.
Yeah.
No, you mentioned a really, really good point about the art of storytelling, and you can't manufacture it without, in tech, and they're trying to like manufacture it, or like, let's redo something we've already done before. People love it then, they'll love it now. Like, I just was driving past Warner Brothers yesterday, and it's really sad. Actually, one of the main buildings of Warner Brothers is for lease. Like they gave up one of their main buildings that has been theirs forever. And
Yeah.
less of that. But it's like the posters that are huge on the side of the wall while you're driving by. One was like night court. And I'm like, night court? What? Are you kidding me? This is where we're at. Like night
Yeah.
court is back and it's a totally different night court. I'm like, oh my God.
Except John Larroquette's still in it. I think
Okay.
the one cast member from the original show, who's I think probably in his 80s by now.
There we go. So, but it's what you're saying. And I remember when I was in music, there's this very famous story, and this is so true of what's going on with TV, is that they had, I forget which label, let's just say it was Sony. Sony had this artist who was like a very grassroots artist who was like very unique and just cool and awesome. And everybody like was just really gravitating towards him. They're like, perfect, we're going to sign you. We're going to get like, 3 records out of you. And that's it. Like, it's going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But Sony decided to take this very unique artist and put his music and him and all that he was into focus groups to get him to be, quote, the best version of him. So his first album would go crazy. And they did focus group after focus group. And they finally released this album and it completely flopped. And guess what? No one knows who that person is, because I couldn't even tell you who that name is, because he never made it, because they sucked all of the creativity, all of the storytelling, like in TV, out of that person. And that's exactly what you're describing and what's happening to our storytellers.
Right. And how fickle the audience is. Because I work in unscripted. I've worked in reality television for 20 years. And a great example that I like to use to people, I said, okay, let's start from 2001 to 2020 and let's lay out every single reality show that's ever been made. All the Alaska shows, all the tow truck shows, all the dating shows. Let's just put them all. Let's just put them all out on a table. Okay. Now, if I'm going to ask you to pick which were the biggest hits, and would you say it's going to be the card that you pick up that's like a bunch of rednecks in Louisiana making duck calls, or a bunch of Guidos on the Jersey Shore? You could never in a million years predict that those shows would become as popular as they did. And that, I think, is my perfect point of saying is like the audience is fickle. The audience really gravitates to kind of like surprise things or stories that they didn't see coming. And I always think it's funny that you see so many movies that are sequels or, on version 5, 6, 7, Mission Impossible 8 is coming out. But you go back to what the original movie was and you say, okay, what about the first Mission Impossible? What about the first Fast and the Furious? Those movies were amazing. Why can't you make more of those? Like why can't you make more original movies that captivate your audience and engage your audience? And that's, again, something that us creatives and us filmmakers, we know that's what we want to do. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of us have had our hands tied in terms of the content that we can produce, because it's like the jobs are, you work on another Marvel movie, but it's like, but I have a great screenplay. It doesn't matter. But even some of the best actors and celebrities who are bringing their own scripts and materials, they still can't even get it greenlit. I'm shocked at some of the names that I've heard of like, oh, this person's trying to shop a movie. I'm like, that person's a huge A-list actor, and they still can't even get their own material through the door. So it's really, again, becoming frustrating, but also in this time where everything's been kind of devastated, where there's chaos, there's opportunity. This is right now, these media companies, their Achilles heel is showing. They're hurting. At least 4 of them are. Netflix is doing all right, but the rest of them aren't doing that good. So there's a lot of filmmakers and creatives saying, okay, maybe this is our time, especially with a creator economy, to just start independently making our own material, making the material that we want to make. And then you start thinking, like, what if you take the best storytellers that are out there, the best people that can create television shows and films, and now you're putting them against, the content creators that are doing makeup tutorials or doing prank shows, and you actually have the best storytelling out there compared to just putting content out for content's sake. What are you going to get? And I think that's what's really exciting for a lot of us right now.
I agree with that completely. I was thinking about Kevin Costner and his movie that he put out, and he had to
Mhm.
fund that and lost so much money because I think
Yeah,
he just wanted to have it in theaters and not stream it. Correct?
right.
All right. Yeah, I mean, those are
I heard
huge.
something like that, but yeah, and I think the same with like Francis Ford Coppola too. You know, he sold part of his winery to make what is it, Megalopolis? I think that's his movie that came out.
Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think about people like that who are just so revered in their position and like their career, and they're still kind of doing it the old way, but
Mhm.
trying to do it the new way. But the old way
Right.
is so I think all of us kind of have this sort of idealistic view of like, I want to sell my script and I want to have
Yeah.
it in theaters and like this old fashioned way that we grew up with that is so glamorous. But now
Yes.
it is so it's such a grind to
Mhm.
create anything. And you're right. I think that that's exactly where we're at. And again, that's what happened with music is all the labels were like, oops. And all the artists were like, we're going to create our own labels. We're going to be independent artists and we're going to blow ourselves up on
Mhm.
social media, YouTube. I mean, all the way back in the day to like all the like different music streamers. And
Mhm.
they did. And now it's like, labels are still kind of in like the mercy of emerging artists, which is
Mhm.
great. But I think we all learned a lot from what was it? Oh gosh, what's that MTV show I'm thinking of? When they like lose everything and then they tell you like behind the music or something like that, maybe.
Oh yeah, VH1 behind the music. Yeah. Where their
Anyway.
face goes into like sepia tone, and they're like, and then it got very dark. You know.
And then they shelved all my albums and I couldn't.
Right.
But that is really kind of true. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think like writers, actors, etc., are able to have that power. The people that I do worry about is the people in IATSE. And for those listening, these are our unions that are like makeup, hair, lighting, all the people that make the production work,
Mhm.
do everything. Those are the people who are really struggling, essentially, because a lighting guy is not trying to be a screenwriter. I mean, maybe, but we can't just be like, hey, I want to start something. Um, what's sort of the future for that, given the circumstance?
That's a good question. That's a and that's I think the $64,000 question. What is the future going to be? We know where we've been. We know where we are. But if you look at a crystal ball, it's all a little murky. And who's to say that, especially with technology and how fast it goes, that sort of the model that we're in now is going to be the same one 5, 10 years from now, because it all changed in 5 and 10 years. And a lot of this is going a lot faster. You have AI now. You have a lot more different things going on. But I think, taking it to a very basic level, you just kind of have to look at the industry as it is now here in California, which is that very few movies are being made, but 27% of the entire entertainment industry resides in Southern California. And that's like the worldwide, right? So the talent is here. But we're now looking at like Governor Newsom's new tax incentives, and he's only just kind of raised the bar from 330 to 750, and it still doesn't. That's only for scripted television and films. That's not for documentaries or animation or reality shows or talk shows. So I think right now, before this bill gets approved by the California state legislature, there's a lot of work to do in order to kind of jumpstart our industry. And I think one of the big things is you see these massive swings in the motion picture industry. And a perfect example is Joker 2, right? That was a $200 million movie that fell flat on its face. And Warner Brothers is already $41 billion in debt. So that wasn't a really good thing for that company, but that's what they expected to do. They're expecting to put such a big movie out and get such a big return. But if you look at like the movies from the 80s and 90s, these are 10, $15 million movies that are making 100, 200 million at the box office.
Mhm.
And if let's just say, you have one $200 million movie, or you make, 20 $10 million movies,
Mhm.
which is going to be more financially, even if half the $10 million movies bombed and the other half made it, that's
Yeah.
equivalent, if not more, than that one big swing that you took. It just, the math is just not lining up. But
Right.
there's so many people afraid of their jobs. I think somebody put it best, where if you're an executive, you will always have your job if you say no.
Hmm.
It's you put your job on the line when you say yes.
Right.
So there's a lot of fear in terms of people that are greenlighting these processes. They're more fearful of, they want to do a sure bet. They want a sure bet, which it doesn't exist in this industry. And you look back at the original executives, the ones that used to be at Paramount and Warner Brothers, and how they used to champion their projects. They used to believe in their projects. If you've ever seen the making of The Godfather, how those producers got in screaming matches about things as simple as like getting Al Pacino on board, or just even getting the script on board, or nobody wants to watch a mafia movie, and now those discussions just kill. They absolutely just kill a project from even beginning. But another perfect example is Cheers. I love to use this example because Cheers would never exist in today's ecosystem. It had a horrible first season, but because it had an executive at NBC who believed in the project, he's like, no, it just needs to catch its audience. Trust me on this one. I have a gut instinct. And he went with his gut, and it became one of the greatest shows in American television history.
Yeah.
So, but in today's modern age, it wouldn't make it past the third episode before being canceled. So, it's interesting, right?
It really is interesting. I feel that fear in all of the situations, whether you're a producer, or you're somebody else within production, or an actor or whatever. Like, no one's really speaking up because they're so grateful to have a job, even for a day. Like, you're going to be putting up with really toxic environments, or really bending yourself in places that you don't want to, especially if you're like a producer and you're just like, well, shoot, I just want to keep this. Like, I don't want this to go away.
Right.
And that's not helping the art form of it at all. And like you said, it's just, if we are not, to me, like, when I listen to you, I just feel this, like, all it is about, like, we've got so much money, we don't want to like spend it unwisely, but let's take a gamble on something that seems like it could work, but then it usually doesn't.
Right.
But then the stuff wasn't there, and I could be wrong. Wasn't there a movie that was nominated for Best Picture? What won for Best Picture this last year? Because I want to say it was like some sort of independent movie that, like,
No, it wasn't the one with something remarkably close. Not the one with oh, you're putting me on the spot, man. I haven't really.
But I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this movie was either nominated or it won. And it was so not something that anybody would have thought would do so well. It was just this beautiful, creative piece of art that somebody took a chance on and everybody loved. I should really find this and put this in the show notes, you guys. But that's kind of what's scary right now, I think, for all of us as artists, and anything that anyone wants to create, is, will someone take this seriously if I pitch it, or, in all aspects.
And I think what you're saying, the whole pitching process, is an old school method of, again, it's like, now these companies that don't understand the product that they're making are running it. And, one of the things I hear amongst, us creatives is like, does anybody who's a computer or software engineer, are they taking the arts and humanities classes? Because they're probably not. That there's a kind of I don't want to call it a disrespect, but more of a there's not an understanding of our industry and how it works. They know how their business works. They know how social media works. They know how, everybody wants to, at least in Silicon Valley, Elon Musk it, meaning like, go in and really, how do we scrape the bottom of the barrel in terms to get the most productivity? And that's a digital solution to an analog business where you have writers' rooms where people just bang their head on the wall for a week sometimes and don't have a product. But it's part of the creative process. The creative process is, I mean, hell, there's been days where I'm just like, I'm just not going to go into the office because I just need to like sit and stare at the ceiling for a little bit until I can figure this out. And now they're saying, well, you got AI to do it. AI will do it. And AI is not, and so unfortunately, it's not a great creative tool. It makes okay stuff. It's great as a helping device, but it doesn't help the creative necessarily make great products. And that takes time, and that takes innovation, and that takes, really kind of putting your right lobe to full work. Another thing you mentioned that I kind of want to revert back to is, you mentioned like the old school method of going to the movie theater and how that used to be great. Another issue that a lot of people don't talk about is how the movie theater has also changed. And I recently went down to Chapman University and I met with a lot of film students down there because there's so many in the industry. It's like, well, this is what Gen Z wants. And I'm like, no, you're just another Gen Xer or you're another boomer telling me what Gen X or Gen Z wants. Have you talked to Gen Z? Have any of you actually had a discussion? So I was like, I'm going to go talk to them. And what they told me was really actually surprising. They would love to go to the movies. We are craving social interaction, but it costs $25 a ticket. So two people going to a movie theaters is $50, and that's before popcorn and Coke, and then you add another $20 per person. It's almost $100 for two people to go to a movie theater. And I go back to 1998, and I got my frosted tips, and
Yes, you do.
I'm wearing two polo shirts, and on Friday night, I was at the movie theater. It was $3.50 on a Friday night to go see a movie, and you would have 10 choices because there would be so many movies that would drop on a Friday night. That was the big thing. Let's go see. And if you were, and if you were a cheapskate like me, you would go in one and then you sneak into a second theater, double showing. But that was and there was so much fun. I remember seeing Titanic in the theater, and by then my soda was done. So we, dumped ice on the row in front of us, for during the iceberg scene. I just remember, and I just remember laughing with everybody and going to see Scream for the first time and jump scares and The Ring and all these memories and happy memories of just being with your friends. And it was an experience because there's something about seeing a movie and laughing all together or being scared all together. There's just something magical about that. And you just don't get that in your home theater. But that younger generation is craving that. So I think the financial model of movie theaters, and if we do go to a more independent scene where we have independent production companies, and you're seeing it with Angel Studios, which is its private independent company, and they're flourishing. They're doing amazing, and they're still releasing movies in the theater. So to say it can't be done or that old method, I think that old method can be brought back. But it just has to be done by the people that understand it and appreciate the art form.
That's really exciting because for years I hadn't seen a movie, and then I finally saw a movie in the theater and I was like, this is so fun. I don't want this to go away. And that's really exciting that the younger generations I want to do this. And also the social aspect alone is something I think every generation is craving desperately to just interact with each other. And what a great way to, especially for Gen Z, because they are so digital and they're so used to screens, let's go together and sit in front of a huge screen and bond.
Or just have that again, but what their screens are, it keeps them in their isolated bubble. So they don't interact. And I remember I lived in New York City in 2004, and I was working at CBS News at the time, and then I worked at Court TV. But I remember my roommate, because the iPod got released in 2004, and I was so excited for my iPod, and it was about this size, I could play 100 songs. I don't have my skipping CD anymore, but I remember my roommate, in a very kind of Nostradamus way, was like, this is going to kill society. And I was like, what? And I'm like, what? Rich, what? What was it going to kill society? Because no one's going to talk to each other anymore. Everybody's going to put their earbuds in and no one's going to talk. And he said that. He said that in 2004. I was like, and I thought he was being ridiculous. I was like, you're a character. But he was absolutely right. I was like, holy shit. That was the smartest thing he ever said, by the way, in his lifetime.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely true. And, I sometimes I take the train up to San Francisco, and I like riding trains. I've always been a particular fan of it. I love looking out the window and seeing a changing landscape. So I'm not on my phone, but I look at the rest of the car and everybody's doing this, and it's almost Twilight Zone-ish. You're like, wow, everybody's completely zoned out.
Yeah.
But again, you're saying, okay, well, does this just really replace newspapers? Would everybody have their face in a magazine, or would they be reading something anyway? So I went down to Chapman University, and I started talking to this group of film students that were Gen Z. And I asked them, because again, I grew up as a geriatric millennial. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I didn't have a cell phone until I went to college. I didn't have social media till I was at least, 25.
Yeah.
But I said, you guys have grown up with content being shoved in your face. You're almost drinking from the fire hose since the moment you can walk. Like, how do you navigate this world? Like, what do you choose and what do you not choose? What are you drawn to? What do you engage with?
Mm-hmm.
And one student put it so eloquently well. He said, you got to imagine that, we're surrounded by social media, but everything on social media is the best version that somebody is putting out there. Meaning, like, it's their best picture, it's their best Photoshop, it's their best vacation. Everybody's life looks magnificent, but it's not real. It's artificial. It's it's the highlights that we want to show to the world, not the ugly parts we don't want to show to the world. So he goes, imagine equating that to eating fast food, and you're just getting another meal and helping a fast food, and you just eat fast food over and over and over again. What eventually is your body going to start doing? It's going to start craving something that's nutritious, something that's real, something that's organic, because otherwise it just doesn't feel good to constantly, be immersed in this. So he said that's why my generation tends to gravitate towards more authenticity, to more genuine people, to real people. That's what we're attracted to. And I thought that was the most profound statement that I got. And it finally clicked with me. I was like, I get how this generation thinks. Mm-hmm. And that is why, like, they're moving to social media, because a lot of the program we see feels forced. Even we've seen it in unscripted. We've seen unscripted go from like, we'll see what happens to, and again, with networks being so risk averse, meaning like they don't like unpredictability. They don't like what's not going to happen, mm-hmm. that even the shows that are documentary or shows of like, we'll see what's happened, have to be pitched in ways that it's like, well, this is what the show is. This is what you're going to see from tip to tail. Yeah. So even reality shows and unscripted shows even feel fake at this point. So that is why there's this massive, massive movement towards social media, towards podcasts, where you're listening to the two of us having a normal conversation. That's why podcasts are so popular. They're getting their information that they want, but they're getting it in an organic way. They're hearing me talk about it. They're hearing you talk about it. And they're like, I understand that a lot better than if that was pushed to me. And they don't like the feeling of material being pushed on them. And I don't think anybody does at this stage.
No, I agree. That's so profound. And I'm so glad that you got that nugget, because I think everyone listening can relate. I think we all want to be somewhere where it doesn't feel like we're eating cheeseburgers from McDonald's every day when we watch TV, and we want to, or social media, we want something more authentic. A lot of people are just jumping off social media. I have been scrolling for like 3 weeks now. And it just happened one morning. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is so icky. It felt so disgusting. And I don't miss it at all. I just don't. And like, part of me is like, well, but what if I miss like some good content that comes through?
That's true.
That's going to suck. But like in the moment, I feel like I'm just detoxing so I can go back with a much healthier version of it. But besides that, it's the authenticity. And that's not what I'm seeing on social media most of the time. I'm seeing regurgitated stuff just like TV.
Right.
So it is.
And that's starting to get old and worn on things too. And then now people are like, I went to an executive summit 2 weeks ago in LA, and one of the big things was like, don't ignore podcasts. Do not
Mm.
ignore podcasts. And I think we even saw with this recent election how important podcasts are
Yeah.
and how much of an influence they can be.
Yeah.
And so that's something that even for a TV producer that I should be mindful of.
Mhm.
Because this, again, it's that clear organic talking, but also, even though we're in two separate cities right now, we're having a very genuine conversation. We are connected. We are talking. We are having an exchange that so far I think it's going well, fingers crossed. But
No, it's going well. It's going well. Everybody
yeah,
write, let us know if it's going well. But no, it's true. I think this is so important for everyone to understand and have like kind of, we've dived a little bit deeper into it. And it's just things are changing and things will change significantly. Like you said, in the next 5 to 10 years, it'll look so different. I mean, no one saw Netflix coming. I used to
no
get
one did.
DVDs and then mail them.
Right. That's right. I remember that in college, and it was just like you won't get a new DVD until you mail back your old one.
Right.
But
Oh, we have an option.
there's a lot more exciting stuff that's coming down the pike too. You're starting to see this brands really starting to integrate themselves, and I mentioned that during this whole like transition period that advertisers kind of got kicked to the curb. Well, brands still want to sell their product,
Mhm.
and again, kind of hopping onto that authenticity train. Most people can't hit the skip button fast enough on YouTube. But where brands are seeing their opening is, again, in organic storytelling. Like, how can I get my brand out there without it feeling like a commercial where it is like the main character is driving a Dodge, and the
Yeah.
perfect example is Fast and the Furious, or, an old Fiat, and that's how you introduce a new Fiat. So, but at the same time, brands are becoming their own media channels too. They're kind of saying, well, who's to say that Coca-Cola can't produce an Oscar-winning film? Even if you look at
Yeah.
it like Apple and Amazon, Apple is a software company, Amazon's a retailer. Those aren't studios.
Yeah.
And so we're going to start seeing also a lot of content coming from the companies that have the money to create content, and that are who
Exactly.
the original advertisers are. So
Right.
I've talked to people where you see Walmart bought Vizio and they're working on material where you can watch a show, and if you hit pause, everything all of a sudden is for sale. So like if I paused your frame, I could buy that dresser that's behind you. I could buy that looks like Himalayan salt. I could buy the picture on the wall. I could buy your microphone. Everything that is in there is clickable and purchasable at Walmart. And I think that is
Wow.
really where, the exciting stuff is, because there's never going to be um, a lull moment for storytelling. Storytelling is always going to be there. And if you look at these transition periods, like, typewriters to word processors, all the typewriter salesmen go, fuck, we're out of a job. But it didn't change the need to tell stories. It's just like
Right.
we just changed the medium of how it's told. And that is really, I think, the core of what we're doing, except some people are just trying to change the storytelling because they think that's what is going to catch the audience.
Mhm.
But I think really, truly, who's going to win this game are the storytellers that know how to tell a story and know how to engage with an audience.
Amen. All right. I loved this. You should come back. Let's talk some more as things progress, because
I
changing.
got nothing better to do. So, yeah, absolutely. I would love to come back. And
Awesome.
this has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Tell people how they can find you.
Well, I have an Instagram, which is producer.Patrick, or TikTok, which is producer Patrick. If you Google producer Patrick, you'll find me one way or another.
I love it. It's so easy. See, now your last name doesn't even matter.
Yeah, exactly. So we got rid of that. It's all the marketing. It's all marketing.
It's all marketing. Thank you so much, Patrick. This has been amazing.
You absolutely got it. Thank you for having me on your show.